Well, hey there, everybody. Matt Heller here, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting and the author of The Myth of Employee Burnout. Here with another exciting episode of 3 Questions. This is where I get to ask 3 questions of a guest, they get to ask 3 questions of me, and then we just see where the conversation goes. We have no idea what those questions are going to be when we start, so all of our answers are unrehearsed and unplanned. That will be especially important with my guest today, Nora Campbell. She is a wonderful person. She currently is the Director of Sales at the National Aquarium in Baltimore. When we met a couple of years ago, she was the, I think, general manager of Ripley's in Baltimore and has held a couple positions with Ripley's. But we met, you were there for IAPA business as well, I think, too, at the Disneyland Grand Californian. And we both signed up for an early morning power walk around California Adventure, which was a lot of fun. And it was great to get to know Nora then. And every time that we get together, or we were able to catch up, it's a lot of fun. So I knew that she would be a great guest for 3 questions. So without further ado, Nora, if you wouldn't mind just saying hello and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. I was really honored that you asked. And I do have short legs, so that walk that day was pretty treacherous. There was kind of more of a jog than a speed walk trying to keep up, but it was a wonderful just happenstance meeting that's turned into a friendship. Well, I've been in Baltimore for the last 20 years, and actually the one common thread has been Baltimore tourism. I've worked for water taxis, the Maryland Science Center, and then, yes, most recently, I was the regional manager overseeing both the Baltimore and Ocean City locations for all the Ripley's attractions there. About 4 months ago, I came on board as the director of sales of the National Aquarium, and I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. And just before the call, you talked a little bit about, this doesn't count as one of your questions, but I think it's really cool. You talked about your Guinness World Records. Can you share a little bit about that?
It was my goal to be a 3-time world champ. And actually, thanks to Ripley's, I was able to get 2 of the 3 awards. I've got one when I was working at the Maryland Science Center for being part of the largest human smiley face. And then I got one from the IAPA breakfast that Jim Pattison, where he spoke, the airplane launch, if you remember that, with the little wooden airplanes. And then in the Bahamas at a Ripley's meeting we had, our manager's meeting, we had the fastest 3-minute high five relay. And so 3-time world record. Very excited.
That's awesome. And I have to say, you're my first Guinness World Record holder guest on 3 questions. So I am truly honored to have you here today. So are you ready to jump into the questions?
Sure, go ahead. All right. My first one for you. I really, really love your outlook on leadership. And in a funny way, I kind of think of Cesar Millan, how his messaging was always, I rehabilitate dogs, but I train the owners. I think a lot of people in business, they look at the staff as the issue, and not necessarily coming from leadership. So I really enjoy that you take that point of view. And I'm wondering, was there one defining moment for you in your career where you thought, I really need to focus in on the leadership?
Wow, that's an excellent question. It's funny because we watched Cesar Millan a lot, my wife and I, and actually in classes when we were watching him a lot, I found myself doing some of the things that he did. When he would kind of say, "Hey," to a dog to kind of. And I did that with people, and it actually worked. But to your question about was there one moment, I think where it really started, that thought process really started, was when I was at Universal. And I was pretty early on in my career, and that was really the first time I had gotten into a role where I was consulting with other people, sort of an internal consultant, and I was training people on leadership and customer service and those type of things, and I was asked to put together a customer service session, and I did, and it wasn't very successful. And part of the reason was that we didn't involve the leadership. So we were focused specifically on the front line. And, it was sort of an aha moment for me that really we've got to get these leaders involved, because they are the ones who are setting the example. They are the ones who are providing feedback and coaching. They are the ones who are setting the expectation, first of all. So if they are not involved, there's no way the frontline staff is going to do what they're supposed to do. So I think that's really where it started. And then when I take a look back at everything I did before that, and certainly everything I've done since then, everything is just kind of reiterated how important leadership is to everything that happens within an organization, but specifically with the frontline staff. There's just no way that you can address those type of issues without looking at the leadership. And I've taken that lesson, and now anytime anybody asks me for, hey, we need a customer service session, I always take a step back and say, okay, what's going on with the leadership? And I focus on that first.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I have always 100% believed it's the top down, and you can feel it when you walk into an office. The tenor of the community, and it starts from the leadership. So that's always where you should focus. But I don't think very many people do. I thought it was so smart of you to go for that.
Thank you. Well, and I think part of that is from a leadership standpoint, and you've probably seen this too, where maybe the leader doesn't want to admit that they are the problem. It's a lot easier to say it's all these frontline people, they just don't get it, right? But if I look in the mirror, maybe it's me who doesn't get it. Yeah. And I'm not really setting the right example. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of my favorite things to say is, if it's always everybody else, maybe it's you. Oh,
I love that.
These staff, they're always so angry. Are they? Are you angry?
Yeah, right. I may have to ask you to repeat that so I can tweet that. That's really good.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. So can you repeat it now so I can write it down?
Oh, if it's always everybody else, maybe it's you.
If it's always. All right. Expect that in a tweet sometime soon.
Oh, I love it. Well, it's sort of along the lines of, what is it? 1 out of 4 people are crazy. Take a look at your 3 best friends. If it's not them,
it's you. Yeah, right. Awesome. Well, good. That was a good first one. Are you ready for your first one?
All right, ready.
All right. So it's somewhat similar as we're talking about leadership, and you've been in a number of different positions, and obviously had many staff around you. But one of the things that I think a lot of leaders struggle with is their own development. So I'm just curious to know sort of what sort of things you do to continually develop your leadership skills, your leadership style, your communication, to continue to be effective and even more effective than you have been in the past.
Sure, right. Well, I love to learn. I just finished Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last, if you're familiar with that. And I thought that was a really interesting look, kind of using a biology to understand how we can help or hurt an office situation. If we have an office that it's really stressful, we're running on cortisol all the time, and we're looking for these dopamine shots by getting these incentives, it's not sustainable. Where when you have a team that's kind of based on, oxytocin and serotonin, and you're engaging those hormones, which is more safety and trust, that while you may not get the initial, in sales in particular, you may not get that initial shot from that constant cortisol, but in the long term, I think you start to see a more healthy pattern with your team and more sustained growth. I'm huge on sharing and brainstorming. No man is an island. I can't tell you how many times I've had the start of an idea and somebody's been able to finish it, or vice versa. So part of my learning is always engaging my team, always talking. I have sales meetings that are with my hotel and consignment, my group sales, my events, and my central res. It may not make sense to most people to have all those people in one meeting together because they kind of have different functions, but you never know when an idea is going to crop up in somebody's mind based on something somebody else in a different department said. So for me, it's learning and listening. Also, my ego is not so big that I can't admit when I'm wrong. So I do self-assess a lot. I'm one of those people, if I feel like I've made the wrong call, wrong decision, said the wrong thing, or have not motivated my staff properly, I will go back and say, you know what? I'm really sorry. That was not my intention. This was the end result, and my apologies.
So I think that's an excellent point, and kudos to you for recognizing that. Were you always that way? Were you always able to admit a mistake, or was that something that came kind of as you developed and got more confidence?
This is going to sound so silly, but when I was in high school, I had this close group of 3 other friends. There were 4 of us. We called it C4 for Catharsis 4. And we were 16 years old, and we would sit and we would ask probing questions like, if you were a piece of artwork, what would you be? And, you know, what is the thing you dislike most about yourself? But it was having those conversations at a very young age and a very safe, supported kind of environment, where I finally came to the realization that, you know, I don't have to admit to the world if I have a bad behavior, but at the very least, I have to admit it to myself. And when you start to admit these things to yourself, you tend to not want to do them again because apologies suck, you know, if, you know, you don't want to do it. So you always want to be on your best foot. And so I think at a very early age, I was lucky to have a close group of friends that allowed me to self-evaluate that way.
That's awesome. And C4 really, you know, is a great way to do that with that close-knit group of friends. Because what I see is kind of the opposite. People who are nowhere near as aware and self-aware as you are, where they're not willing to admit a mistake. They're much more concerned with covering it up because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to think other people, you know, can't trust them. And so I think it's fantastic that
you know what's interesting about that, and it's part of the reason why I'm so honest, because if I didn't do it and I tell you I didn't do it, you're going to believe me. Because I admit it when I have done it, you know? So it's all about the integrity and the honesty and the back and forth. And we're all human. Nobody's perfect. And if you think you are, tell me what you're drinking, because I haven't met anybody yet who is.
Right. Exactly. So excellent perspective. Are you ready for another question for you?
Yes.
All right. So one thing that has not been mentioned, and I don't know if you're still doing it as much anymore, but you are a clown.
Yes, I am.
Literally and figuratively,
yes.
You know, knowing you. But I'm curious, in your experience as a clown, and you can talk a little bit about that certainly if you'd like, but I'm curious about any lessons that you may take from being a clown that you can apply to your role in leadership or in sales, or, you know, what kind of things do you take from that can be applied in other areas of your life?
Sure. Well, considering most people have a sheer terror of clowns, I guess, you know, honestly, so the type of clown that I was, and not to be a clown snob, but there were performance artists, physical comedians, and then there was sort of your birthday party clown. And I was in the performance artist category. We didn't speak, so we had to communicate through our bodies. And I am a hand talker, as you can probably tell. But I think what I was able to learn, one, make somebody laugh, and you've probably got an ally. But two is how important body language is. How do you communicate to somebody when you're not flapping your gums? One of the things I do, this is going to sound kind of funny, and I'm giving away my secrets now for the future, so this is going to be a problem, Matt, but I'll do it for you.
Thank you.
It was something that I read that said, you know, people like them. So I've tested this before, and it's all about body language and business. You know, this obviously is indicating to me as a salesperson, this person's a little bit more closed off. You know, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more diving in to get them to loosen up, or are they moving forward and talking? So one of my little secrets is if somebody seems like kind of a difficult customer, I start to mimic them slightly. I don't do it directly as they're doing it, but if they shift forward, I'll take a few beats, then I'll shift forward. We're talking, then if they shift back, you know, a few beats, and I'll shift back. And I feel like it works. I don't know that it has, but I think from clowning and everything being so physical, I just have more of a focus on what my body's doing when I am interacting with people, or I'm in some sort of sales call.
So it's not about wearing the red nose.
That's always going to disarm them, Matt. Always.
Yeah, right. But I love what you say about people like people who are like them.
Yeah.
Right. And I totally agree with that. And I think that's one way that we, you know, build relationships with people, is finding commonality, finding common ground. So, you know, even though, you know, people may be worlds apart in views or, you know, their background, if there's something that they can find that I can identify with that person, then that helps build a relationship.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's networking too. You know, I know a lot of people tend to be nervous about networking. And I think what it is, it's nerve-wracking making the break-in, right? Like, how do you approach a group? And I think sometimes when you come in and you're like, hi, I'm so-and-so from such and such company, and I'd like to tell you about my product, it puts people off. It's just having a conversation. Really, that's all networking is. I mean, that's how you and I met. I heard you say to a woman that you were there for IAPA. I was there for IAPA, and it was like, who is this fella? And we're speed walking together, and I think we just had a conversation. We weren't talking business. Business has come out of it, in a way, but not at the time. It was just a conversation. It was just getting to know somebody. It's not that scary, really.
Right. Well, and I think there's so many resources and networking experts that say you have to develop your elevator pitch, and say their name 3 times within 30 seconds or whatever it is, and I think that really makes people nervous. But I love what you say about it's just a conversation. Just get to know them, and above all else, if there is business that's going to transact, be the one that's going to help them. Try to be the one that you are offering them help, not trying to get them to do something for you.
Right. And everybody who's been in one of those networking learning sessions goes, and there's my name a third time. It doesn't feel sincere.
That's so right, Nora. That's very true, Nora.
Thank you, Matt.
Well said, Nora. Very good. Okay. All right. Awesome. So do you have another one for me?
I sure do. Okay. So when you're coaching leaders, is there a trait or something that you see in a person you're approaching that's like an immediate red flag to you, that's immediately like, this person's going to be work, or this person might have more trouble understanding what I'm trying to say?
Usually the red clown nose is a big indicator. I don't know that there's a red flag right away, but as you talk to people, you definitely can tell whether or not they're open-minded or not. And that's one of the things that I absolutely look for. Someone like yourself who says, I'm very self-aware, I look for opportunities to grow and learn, is somebody that you can talk to and you can suggest things to. Whereas people who are a little bit more closed-minded, and you have to kind of chip away at them a little bit more to find the crack, because I think their closed-mindedness is a defense mechanism. They're trying to, they've got these ideas and they think that their ideas are the right way, and it's going to take a while for somebody else to kind of break through that. So I think it's just about, being closed-minded, and if somebody can't say, I see your point, even if they don't agree, if they can just say, I can see where you're coming from, that kind of person is someone that can be coached and can learn and can grow and get better. It's the people who just have no interest in hearing another opinion or another thought process. Those are the folks that, I guess that's a red flag that I notice, and that it's going to take a little longer to kind of chip away. But that's also where the relationship comes in, because if you can build a relationship with someone like that, and maybe right off the bat they're very defensive, but then you build a relationship and the defenses start to come down, and they start to see that you're not there to hurt them, you're not there to challenge their thought process, you're there to help them. Then when that defense comes down, that's when you can kind of get in there with some advice maybe that they'll listen to. So I think the open and closed-mindedness, that's the biggest red flag.
Yeah. Is that something you feel like you can kind of tell right away when you meet somebody? Can you get a sense pretty early on which way they're going to go?
I think so. I think probably within a couple of minutes of a conversation, you can tell whether or not someone's going to be open to what you have to say or not. And some of that could be based on how much they're talking versus how much they're asking questions and listening. Right.
Or what is it, the thing where they say there's the people who listen to hear and people who listen to respond?
Exactly. Right. And you've probably experienced both of those type of people. I know that I have been both of those type of people.
I was just going to say, I've been both of them. Yeah.
Right. And it's typically when we hear things that we think we already know the answer to. When I was in guest services and hearing people complain, well, my kid is too small to get on the roller coaster, blah, 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 and I almost started tuning them out because, all right, I've heard this before.
Right.
Just stop talking so I can tell you what I want to tell you. But it really took listening to learn to be able to figure out exactly what the problem was.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got a fun question for you.
Bring it.
I know it sounds like a fun question, but I need to express to you the seriousness with which I need you to take this.
Okay.
All right. Matt Heller.
Yes.
If you were able to design your very most best roller coaster in the world, what components would it have?
Oh my goodness. Well, starting with Leviathan, which I know we've both ridden.
Yes, there's a picture. There is a picture. I took it just for you so that you knew I was getting ready to head on. And might I say, the finest roller coaster recommendation I've ever had. That is officially still my favorite.
Wow, thank you. Yeah. It's still one of mine, absolutely. So if I were to design the best roller coaster, speed, it's got to be fast. It's got to be fast and sustained speed. So it's got to be fast the whole way through. Lots and lots of air time. I love, going up the hill and just getting the weightlessness and being out of your seat. And so I think that those two things would definitely be part of it. I think with I'm going to get kind of nerdy here, but with the linear induction motors and, you can get a coaster up to speed very, very quickly without having to go up the big hill. I kind of like the big hill. I like the anticipation. I like the fact that if you're going up, like for instance, like Leviathan's 300 and something feet tall. So the time that you're going up that hill, you're building anticipation and you get to look out and see the whole coaster track. And then when you get to the top and you're cresting the top and you're just getting over the top and you're looking down, if you're in the front seat, I mean, that's an incredible experience right there. And then just the length of that drop, I think is really, really thrilling and to me a real big part of the experience. So I guess that's the other thing, is that I would make it really tall, so and actually give you the lift hill so that you could get up the have that experience of going up the hill.
That's awesome.
As part of that, yeah.
I was gonna say, so that's exactly, you are describing a roller coaster I would love. The thing I loved about the Leviathan, I feel like I'm at the point where it's not that I don't get excited before I go on a ride. I am, but I'm kind of like, all right, let's do this. The Leviathan was the first time in a while where I was like, I only have a lap belt. I've gotten used to the harnesses. There's no harness now. And I'm holding on to this little lap belt thing and I'm looking at my friend and I'm like, we're still going up. It was the most fun I'd had in a while and it was thrilling. I'm with you. I could do just drops all day.
Yeah. Well, and you just mentioned something that is critical to the design. No over-the-shoulder harnesses.
Yeah, it makes me feel very secure when I have them. So the absence of them is thrilling and terrifying.
Exactly. But
I will say I don't know what happened to me, but maybe like 5 years ago, my ability to take spinning rides decreased significantly. I mean, I'm not kidding. A teacup could put me out for half a day if it spun too fast. So I find that I tend to like more like the Leviathan or like the Superman at Six Flags. But if there's too many inversions and rolling around, my head starts knocking against the sides of the thing, I'm out. Yeah.
Well, and I like to be smooth, but not so smooth that you can't feel anything.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think Leviathan has a really good mixture of that. Now, if you'll indulge me, I'll get a little bit more nerdy.
Please.
Because that's on the steel side.
Okay.
If we're talking about wooden coasters and not the hybrids, the new ones with the wooden structure and the steel I-beam, Rocky Mountain coaster kind of thing, like Texas Giant or Outlaw Run. Those are great and I love them. But if you're going to go with a wooden coaster, something like Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm,
okay,
or even Apocalypse at Magic Mountain, because they are fast and there's some air time, but they're a little bit rough. Not so rough that it shakes the brain out of your head,
right,
kind of thing, but rough in that it kind of the center of gravity seems to be a little bit lower, and you kind of feel it in your hips and your back a little bit, and your lower body, and just getting kind of thrown around. There's a fine line, and I know for a lot of people, it's over the line, but for me on those kind of coasters, when you get kind of beat up a little bit, and you're kind of moving back and forth. And like I said, it's not a brain shaker, but more of a body shaker.
Right.
I really enjoy those as well.
The brain shakers don't work for me. Yeah, no. They're too much. Do you know what I thought was really wild? When I went to Dollywood, I can't remember the name of it all of a sudden, but it was all of a sudden you're going, and it was almost a 90-degree incline. It was like a coal miner ride.
Yes.
That I thought was really wild. I'd never seen anything like that before, and I was like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, you're like going up the mine shaft.
Yeah. I thought that was wild. I like that.
Yeah. And they have their wooden coaster. The name of that is escaping me too. But that one, it flies right back through the station.
Okay.
As you're on, it's really kind of neat and kind of loud and kind of fun. So yeah. So yeah. Now I will also a little more nerdy. So you've probably seen these new newer, getting more popular coasters where they're just kind of down the side of a mountain. You know, the little one-seater things where they're on a little rail. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
I have yet to try one, but I think on my roller coaster trip this summer, I think we're going to try one. But those just look so fun because you get, you're going down the side of a mountain and you're just kind of twisting and turning, and it's all about speed. And I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds cool. Let me know how that is.
I will. Absolutely. It might be another recommendation for you.
Yep.
So I have kind of a two-part question. This is technically my third question, but so you talked earlier about the questions that your group had asked, and you said if you could be one piece of artwork, what would it be? And I do want to hear a little bit about the artwork, but I also want to kind of put this into a work setting as well. So if you could pick one piece of artwork, what would it be? And then also I would like to hear your thoughts on if you could pick a different profession or a different occupation to try for a year. Nothing you've ever done before, so nothing that is similar to what you've done in tourism already. What kind of occupation would that be and why?
The painting one kind of has me a little bit. I will tell you what I actually collect, which are cartoon prints. So I've got a Gary Larson, I have 2 Dr. Seuss prints, and I have a Wyland cartoon. And actually behind me right there is a Wyland. So ocean art, which is where, my aquarium experience, I'm like, this is perfect. But I tend to like bright, bold colors. And one thing that my husband and I do whenever we travel is we always try to find one piece of artwork at each place that we've been. And we have a little wall where we put that. I was trying to think, one of the things because it was making me think about the old C40s. I remember one of my friends said that they thought I was a Jackson Pollock because I was chaos in concentric circles. And another one said that I was a Monet because from far away, you were like, oh, okay. But then when you got up close, you could see all the detail and they thought that was interesting about me. So that was kind of fun. But the profession I would be, probably teaching. And I say that because I kind of feel like maybe it's not a grand departure, but it's sort of what I already do. When I first got into the industry or the water taxis, I was there from 19 to 30, the age of 30. And the owner of the company really felt it was important that we become the first hire for a lot of kids. And I remember he said to me, he's like, Nora, look, I'm sorry, it's going to be more work. You're going to have to explain over and over again why uniform is important, why being on time is important, but it's so important to, go out into the schools and to recruit in the guidance departments and be the first line, be the first time they get to, and teach them all this stuff. So for my leadership style, that's something that I've always carried with me. And if you were to ask me, what is the definition of success? The definition of success is the relationships I still have with my staff going back to the late 90s. That to me is success. I get to see them grow. Now they have kids. They still check in on me, to see how I'm doing. My last day at Ripley's, my staff there, I didn't walk 2 feet into my office without just bawling. They had decorated my office with little Post-it notes that said, we love you. We can't believe you're leaving us for those fishes. There were balloons and banners and we're going to miss you. And they made me a breakfast of chicken and waffles, and they brought sparkling apple cider so that we could toast in the morning on my last day. That's the definition of success to me. And everything that I do is sort of from a mentoring role. I've even said to my current staff, if you ever think you might be leaving somewhere, let me be your reference. Don't sneak out behind me. Let me help you get to the next level. As painful as it is when somebody crucial to your team leaves, because it's always going to be a disruption. I'm more excited to see them grow and to do better than they've been before. And I want to be part of that success. So I think if I hadn't sort of fallen into tourism and attractions, I probably would like to try out teaching. I think it's a a tough job. They're underpaid. They're underappreciated. But I think that's where the good work lies.
Okay, well, it's a great perspective. What kind of teacher do you think you would be?
Well, I got my degree in history with a minor in sociology. So I would definitely want to teach social studies. I think, to me, history is so important and often thought of as kind of like a blah subject, which I don't get. I mean, I remember one day learning that the World War I, the Prince of England, the Kaiser of Germany, and the Tsar of Russia were cousins. And I remember thinking, you can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? Like, this could be a great American literature. And the reason why I went towards history was because it was as good as works of fiction, but it had happened. And something that my old boss had said to me from the water taxis years ago, he said, you know, it's not that history repeats itself. It's just that in 2,000 years, human nature hasn't changed. And it was a really interesting way, because I don't believe it repeats itself. I think we got to get to the bottom of people's behaviors and why we do things we do. It's not that it's necessarily cyclical, but it's also helped me to see the ebb and flow of life, you know, like even like current political states, you know, you can kind of see throughout history, we've pendulated sort of back and forth. And we tend to end up somewhere towards the middle at the end of the day, you know, when you look back on the long history. So I would definitely enjoy teaching social studies history. And in fact, my best friend is a social studies teacher, and she just had this assignment, and it was, what would it have looked like if the Civil War had been live tweeted? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, so I think that's what it would be for me.
Okay. So interesting that you bring up human nature. You know, and the fact that we really haven't changed all that much, because I was just having a conversation this morning with a friend of mine here in North Carolina, and we were talking about how fast technology has changed, but the fact that we really haven't changed all that much, you know, in how we approach things. And, you know, you think about the phone and, you know, people complain that, oh my gosh, people are on the phone all the time. And well, it's just another way to connect with other people. And that's, you know, kind of the base of human nature. So I think that's a really interesting perspective. So
what really cracks me up that you said that too, about how fast technology's changed, is I've recently started watching TV shows from like the late 90s, early 2000s. I sort of missed because I was in, you know, college, and I wasn't really, I won't say what they are because it's embarrassing, but there was one episode, and I think the episode was something like 2003, and a grandfather comes out and he goes, look, they've set me up with this thing called Wi-Fi. And I was like, it wasn't around then? Like, you know, it's funny how fast it's grown and developed. You almost take for granted how much in just 10 years has changed.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, as much as I travel, one of the first things I look for in a hotel, do they have Wi-Fi? Is it everywhere? You know what I mean?
And if they charge for it, I may not stay there.
I agree with you. I think that has become one of the things that should be a, you know, just a free benefit of staying at the hotel, is that, you know, you get Wi-Fi. You get a bed, you get Wi-Fi.
We've just come to expect it.
I think so, yeah. And it's so much a part of how we connect, you know, whether it's on the road or, you know, wherever. So I think that's absolutely true. Awesome. Yeah. So was that officially 3 questions from you?
That was my 3.
Okay, because that was my 3 as well.
That was so fast.
I know.
Next year it'll be 10 questions with Matt and Nora.
Yeah, right? Yes, Nora. It will, Nora. Very good.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This did go by very, very fast, and I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to be on the session with me, and for all of your insight and your tweetable phrases and things. So if there's any other comments or things you'd like to say, I'd like to go ahead and give you the floor for a second.
No, just that I really appreciate your friendship. I think what you do is fabulous, and again, it's a real honor that you would want to have a conversation with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, if we could do this every day, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, next we'll have a roller coaster. We'll have a roller coaster fest one day.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. And I'll let you know how that mountain coaster is.
Please do. Yeah. And if I happen to catch any that, you know, don't spin me too much, I'll let you know. I'll give you my 5-star rating.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much again, Nora, and we'll talk to you soon, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye.